Okay, this is module 2, and this module 2 is for building a two-tier VLT fabric. That is the objective. It's going to be VLT technology, virtual link trunking. I already talked about that in the previous video. And one thing I just want to show here is to go to the topology diagram, so that way we can go ahead and see how this topology looks like. And the idea of this lab is to have a couple switches, which is switch 3 and switch 4. These two switches right here are going to be the main, let's call them spines, right, in this VLT two-tier fabric. So this is the tier that has the spines, right? And then on a second tier, you're gonna have your leaves, right? These leaves normally go on a top of a rack, or middle of the rack, or end of the row, depending on how you configure the your data center. So just to illustrate, let me just make a quick drawing of what I'm talking about here. So let me just select the color here. So the idea of the dual VLT fabric is that at one layer you're gonna have two switches, and these switches are gonna be VLT spines, for example. And these VLT spines are the ones that are gonna terminate all those VLANs. Let's say that you have VLAN 10, and let's say that you have VLAN 20. So over here at this layer, you're gonna have the same VLANs on both switches, for example. And then each VLAN is gonna have an IP address, right? So that way you can route between subnets, and that so this is gonna be the one that is gonna contain the they call it the SBIs, right? The switch virtual interfaces, right, for each of the VLANs. And okay, so this is just one part of this two-tier VLT. So this is the tier that has the I think the another way to describe it, these two switches right here are gonna have the boundary of layer 3 and layer 2. Layer 3 going out to another network, or it can be layer 2, and layer 2 over here on this other side of the boundary is going to be for southbound devices. And those southbound devices can be another pair of switches that are going to be in VLT mode. So this is going to be the other layer that the lab is going to go over. So now once you have your core, the spines, right, that is going to have the layer 2 and layer 3 capability, then over here on these two leaves, you can actually, it can be inside, for example, a rack. And let's call this rack 1. So rack 1 now has a couple of top of rack switches, and these switches can be the S5248Fs that have 48. This one has 48 times 1, 10, 25 gigabit ports each. Okay, so this is our VLTI link, virtual link trunking, and this is the virtual link trunking on the main one. So let's call these leaves. Okay, so the idea of having this type of setup is that you can actually connect at least a single link to each of the VLT spines from each of the leaves. Okay, so that way you can create a port channel, right? So if each of these link is 100 gig, 100 gig and 100 gig. Now you have a 400 gigabit per channel, as long as the VLT spines are the Dell. Let's make sure that we have Dell S5232s. Okay, so the Dell 5232s have 32 ports of. It can be. I just gonna keep it simple here. 32 ports of 100 gig, for example, and of course it's a multi-rate switch. Each port can be run at 40, or perhaps you can use it in breakout mode and break it into 410s, for example. And this 100 gigabit port can be broken into 425s. Just an example, right? So the beauty of this architecture is that as you add more racks into your data center, all you have to do is to add a couple of top of rack switches, right? These switches can be maybe different. Maybe these switches can be as 5232 Fs, okay? And the idea of having these 5232s is just in case you need to have a lot of compute in this rack 2, okay? One example, let's say that you have 30 nodes, each node with 4 ports of 25 gig, for example. So let's say that you have 30 servers. So one thing we can do with the 5232s is that we can use some type of patch panel that will allow you to use optics on the switches themselves, then going into this patch panel, and this patch panel is going to give you LC connectors that can plug in into, let's say this is one of the servers that has 4 25 gigabit interfaces. So now you can come down with an LC to LC cable, OM4 multi-mode fiber, and connect connect up to all these 30 servers, so with a couple of 5232s, just to give you an idea. So let's say that you need to have another rack for storage. All you have to do is to add another rack. So I'm gonna put it right here because I don't have a space. So let's say that we put another rack over here, and of course these switches are not going to be side by side. It's going to be one on top of the other. I'm just doing it for just to simplify the drawing, okay? Now it's getting a little bit busy. So the idea of having these two switches with a VLTI link, right, is to, in this case, it's going to connect to these VLT spines, and now you can have storage devices. And this storage device might be an iSCSI storage, and this iSCSI storage might have a need for 4 ports of 25 gig per controller, for example. Maybe you have another type of storage that is kind of a network attached storage, right? And maybe this network attached storage has four nodes, and each node has 2 ports of 25 gigs. So then the idea on this particular storage rack, let's call it the storage rack 3. This is rack 2. The idea is that you can add another device here. Maybe you want to do backups, right? Backups. Disk to disk. Maybe this big backup device has 10 gigabit interfaces. So the idea of using the multi-layer or the two-tier VLT fabric is that you can scale out as the more racks you need. The only limitation is going to be the amount of ports on each of the VLT spines. So that is something to consider. Let's see what else. I guess that's it for now. So let's go back to the lab. So over here, switch 3 and switch 4 is going to be our VLT spines, right? The ones that are going to have the SVIs. And the bottom two switches, which is switch 1 and switch 2, those are going to be our top of rack switches for rack 1. We can have another pair of these switches over here for rack 2 connecting to the VLT spines, and we can have another rack for the storage and connecting to VLT spine 1 and VLT spine 2. But just for this demo, it's going to be very it's going to be simplified. Switch 5 is going to mimic a server. It's going to mimic a server with just a lag, and we're going to configure VLAN 200 on each of the switches, right? We're going to configure and make sure that we allow VLAN 200 to be passed on these port channels. Like for example, this is port channel 10 and this is port channel 20. Okay, so the VLTI is a special port channel 1000, but that one is created by the VLT protocol. That is something that is created automatically once you enter the information on the CLI, and the same for this one over here. So let's continue and move on to the next step, which is going to be power up the lab. So I'm going to click on the GNS3 icon, and it's going to give me some choices that I wanna explain. So we have the option of launching the console and in going into switch 1. Let me just take a look here, because there's a way to automate the configuration of all the switches, so that way we don't have to do it from scratch. It's just been a while since the last time I have done this, so just bear with me. So it says optional. Each switch has a safe configuration that can be loaded instead of entering the commands as instructed in this exercise. To load the configuration, enter the following command on each switch. Alright, so let's try to do that. So let's go ahead and just have to configure everything, because the idea of this lab is just to do some show commands, just to show that the topology is working and we're be able to pass traffic. So in that case, I'm gonna go ahead and open module 2, because that's the one that we're gonna be exploring. It says that there is a newer GNS3 version, but I don't care because I'm at the Dell demos, and I'm using their version of GNS3, which is 2.2.5. And okay, so I'm not going to repeat what I said on the previous videos, but just to recap, this OS10 right here is actually a switch and not a router. Well, it is a multifunction switch. It's not like a border router that can do, like MPLS protocols and one connections, right? We're using the MPLS or. But the one thing that we can do here is for the inside of the data center, we can use advanced routing protocols such as OSPF, or for interior gateway, right, protocol, and we can use IBGP, right, or we can use eBGP to connect to the outside world or within an autonomous system. So let's go ahead and change the way this one looks, because let's change the symbol, because I don't think that's accurate for this GNS3. So let's pick a multifunction switch here. Let me see. There you go, a multi-layer switch. Okay, so we apply that. Actually, I don't have to do it, but I just want to do it just to illustrate. So let's go ahead and change this symbol as well. Let's go to the classic. Let's see here. Let's do the multi-layer switch. Apply. Over here, even though these two switches are going to be the top of rack switches for the leaves are going to be in layer 2, but they are actually they're going to be also a multi-layer switches as well. And there is some cool things that we can do with more advanced configurations, but I don't want to get into that at this point. So let's change the symbol for this one. So let's use the classic, and let's go ahead and select the multi-layer switch, apply. Okay, same with this one. Change symbol, classic. Let's go ahead and select the multi-layer switch. Then we're gonna look for the symbol for the server. So let's go ahead here and see if we can find the symbol for the server. Let's see. There you go. There is one right here. Yeah, let's use this generic one. Okay, so now we do have all this going on. So let's go ahead and turn on the devices. So that is the next step. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to run these copy commands, copy the this config file on each of the switches, and that's going to actually load a running configuration that we can use, so we don't have to enter command by command like I did on the previous two videos. I was able to drag several statements into the CLI, and in this case we're gonna skip that. So let's go ahead and do open. Let's go ahead and open the consoles for all the nodes. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start with switch 1, and let's make this bigger. Let's go ahead and do change settings. Let's go into appearance. Let's go ahead and change the font to make it larger, so that way you can appreciate it better. You can actually kind of see what's going on. So I'm gonna do only one switch at this point. I'm gonna stop this video. I'm gonna start the next video. It's gonna be just a troubleshooting. No, not troubleshooting, but it's gonna be actually showing, do some show commands, and perhaps we're gonna pass some traffic, and that way you can have an idea of how this two-tier design works. So let's go ahead and do admin, and this is the CLI for the Dell operating system 10, which is part of the Dell data center class of switches. It's the switches that are normally used to connect servers, storage devices, and as well as firewalls and any other device that is a part of the data center. So let's go ahead and copy the config. Let's do the copy config command that is on this manual. Config. Let's do slash. Let's do forward. Okay, let's do 2-tier VLT. Tier VLT. I think it's case sensitive, so I'm gonna keep it running configuration, and let's type. And right now it's applying the configuration. Keep in mind that this is a demo. It's actually running online. So let's go ahead and wait a little bit until the file is copied. It's gonna take perhaps a minute. Okay, all right. So wow, this is good. Okay, so what happened here is that it went ahead and already named the switch as switch 01. As you can see, I didn't have to do it. So let's go ahead and type end. And oh well, I'm already at end. So let's do write memory. Okay, so now let's do a show run. And now let's see what was configured automatically by copying that file into the running configuration. And now we can see that this file created VLAN 200. It created interface port channel 10. It created port channel 30. It set up the proper mode to trunk, so that way we can pass VLANs, VLAN 1 and VLAN 200. It configured the management interface with the proper IP address, and that's it. So we don't have to do it all over again. Now, yeah, and the idea is that if you watch the other two videos, then I don't want to repeat that. So I'm gonna stop this video. On the next one, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have all the switches already with this automatic auto configuration of the config file, so that way we can just go straight to do some type of show commands, so that way we can see how each switch is configured, how each of the settings should look like, and perhaps let's do a little troubleshooting, maybe shutting down a switch and maybe trying to see what is the what is the effect of doing that. All right, so let's just stop this video.